He slammed the rent contract down on my dresser like I was just some stranger crashing at his place, not the mom who raised him, watched his kids, and kept the whole house running for 3 years without asking for a single thing. Pay rent, or move out, James said. Just like that. No hesitation. No kindness in his voice. So I left. No yelling, no tears, just grabbed one bag, took one last look, and walked out the door. What James didn't know, a week later, I'd be sitting on over $4 million, with the deed to the very house he thought belonged to him. Funny how life works sometimes. Let's rewind a little. I was folding laundry, his youngest son's, actually, when James knocked on my door. He was holding a manila envelope like it was a court notice. "Can we talk?" he asked, but his voice was flat, cold. I thought it was about the boys, maybe something from their school. But instead, he handed me a rent agreement. $200 a month, due the first of every month, starting next week. I looked at him, hoping he was joking. But his face was serious, like stone. "You've been living here for free for 3 years, Mom," he said. "We can't cover everything anymore." I tried to say something, anything, but my throat felt tight, like the walls were closing in around me. And there was Heather, right behind him, arms crossed, looking almost proud. "It's only fair," she said. "We paid the bills. You eat, you shower, you live here. It's just not sustainable." I looked back at James, searching his face for the boy I used to know, the one I worked night shifts for, skipped meals for, even sold my car to help when he and Heather needed a down payment for this very house. But I didn't see him. I just saw someone I didn't recognize. "I've been helping," I finally managed to say. "With the kids, the house. Every single meal since 2020. "That's not the same as money," Heather snapped. "We need cash, not casseroles." That night, I heard them talking in the kitchen. "She's not going to pay," Heather said. "She doesn't have it. I told you. Just give her the deadline," James replied. "Let her figure it out. I'm not running a charity." He didn't argue. He didn't defend me. Just mumbled, "Let's get through the next month." She leave. I was standing at the top of the stairs, fists clenched. I didn't wait. I packed one suitcase before the sun came up. No goodbyes. I just walked out of the house I helped them buy, the same house with my name still quietly written on the deed, something they stopped talking about long ago. I checked into a cheap hotel 2 miles away. The bathroom tiles had mold, the ceiling light flickered, and the water pressure was barely a trickle, but it was mine, and it was quiet. I sat on the bed holding that rent contract like it was a goodbye letter, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I just felt cold. Like something inside me had finally frozen over. They didn't want me as a mother anymore, just a tenant. And when they realized I couldn't pay, they wanted me gone. Fine. They could have both my money and my presence. Neither was theirs anymore. The room smelled like old bleach and stale air, like someone had scrubbed away whatever life used to be there. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, hoping maybe James would call, maybe say sorry. He didn't. The wallpaper was peeling. The heater made a dull clunk every half-minute, and a broken light buzzed outside the window like it was stuck in a loop. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, not even a message to ask if I was safe. I lived with them for over 3 years. I raised their boys, changed their diapers, taught them how to count, read to them every night. I gave up my own apartment, my independence, my quiet but steady life because they needed help, because daycare was too expensive and working from home was too much. Now I was tossed aside like I was nothing. I looked down at my half-empty suitcase, trying to remember what I even owned. 1 purse, 2 pairs of pants, a worn-out cardigan, and somehow, even with so little, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. I opened the old file folder I always kept with me just in case. Inside were all the important papers I might need during an emergency. My birth certificate, social security card, and hospital records from when I worked as a licensed home nurse. Tucked between the pages, I found something I'd completely forgotten about, the thin envelope labeled Equity Transfer, Whitefield Estates. I stopped breathing for a second. It was from 5 years ago. My old employer, Mrs. Langford, had given it to me before she passed, after I spent 2 months by her side during her last round of chemo. I could still hear her voice, weak but kind. "I've arranged something for you, dear. It's quiet, but it's worth something. You weren't just staff, you were family." At the time, I thought it was just a small thank you, But when I looked through the envelope, I realized it was much more than that. She'd left me a 20% equity share in a small real estate development company she helped start in the 1980s. I never followed up on it. I didn't want to make things awkward with her family, but now alone in a cheap hotel, with no one even checking if I was alive, I opened my laptop and searched for the company name, and what I found made my jaw drop. The company had just closed a major deal redeveloping 3 waterfront properties that were sold to a big international investor. My heart pounded as I read the press release. The money from the sale had already been sent out to all the stakeholders. I quickly typed an email to the contact listed in the old paperwork. Just 2 hours later, I got a reply. The sale had closed. Last weekend my share, $4.2 million, already transferred to an account set up in my name years ago by Mrs. Langford's lawyers. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat there in shock, letting it sink in. I had been tossed aside like I was nothing. Like I was just some old woman taking up space. But without asking, begging, or even expecting anything, I suddenly had the power to change everything. And I would, not to get revenge, but to take back control. To remind myself that I mattered. I didn't call James. I didn't text Heather. I didn't even tell a friend. I just sat in that tiny hotel room, staring at that email like it might disappear. But it didn't. The number was real. $4.2 million, sitting in an investment account under my name, carefully set up and protected by people who had truly valued me. I didn't scream or jump up and down. I simply closed my laptop, stood up, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Steady. That afternoon, I walked to the nearest bank and scheduled a meeting with the financial advisor. Her name was Diane, and she stayed calm, even when I showed her the documents. "This isn't a lottery win," I told her quietly. "It's gratitude, repaid. I just want to do it right." She nodded and got to work. By the next day, I had a full financial plan, accounts under a trust name, smart investments, and just enough cash on hand. It was all set up quietly, without drawing attention. And then, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I walked into a luxury real estate office and asked for a home tour. I didn't use my real name. Working as a private nurse in rich homes taught me how those circles worked. I signed in as Margaret Lewis, a quiet buyer looking for a peaceful home in a gated condo complex. When they asked about my budget, I just said, "No upper limit. I just want something discreet." We looked at 3 places. The third was perfect: 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the harbor, keycard entry, underground parking, and a calm, respectful neighborhood. I signed the papers that same day, paid in full, no loans, no waiting. That night, I walked out of the hotel for good. No goodbyes, no explanations. I moved into my new condo like a shadow stepping into the light. No one knew where I was. Number 1 knew I had money, and that's exactly how I wanted it. For the first time in decades, the space was all mine. No baby cries in the night. No chores, no snide notes on the fridge about groceries. I filled the kitchen with food I liked, bought a new coat, got a proper haircut, replaced my phone. New number, fresh start. But this wasn't about a makeover. This was about finally feeling safe and steady, about knowing who I was again. And then I remembered something important. The house James and Heather lived in, the one I helped them buy 5 years ago, it wasn't just theirs. Back then, their credit wasn't good enough to qualify for a mortgage, so the bank made them get a cosigner. That was me. But I only agreed if my name went on the deed, and it did. They stopped mentioning it long ago, probably hoping I'd forgotten. But I didn't. And now, with a lawyer on retainer and nothing left to lose, I was ready to remind them. I wanted to know exactly where I stood, legally, not because I wanted to take anything back. Not yet, but it was time they remembered I wasn't someone they could just push aside and forget. I didn't show up at the house. I went to the courthouse. Instead, one quiet afternoon, I walked into the county clerk's office, took a number, waited about 30 minutes, and asked for a copy of the property records. A staffer printed out the deed, and there it was, my name clear as day, still listed, right alongside James and Heather's. Not as a former owner, not as a footnote, as a full co-owner. I stared at the page like it was a picture of something I thought I'd lost forever. 5 years ago, I co-signed the mortgage because James and Heather couldn't qualify on their own. And I never asked to have my name removed. Why would I? I trusted them. I believed the house was a gift for their future, not something they'd use to throw me out. I went back to my condo and sent the deed to Diane, my financial advisor, and Marianne, a lawyer I had just hired. Marianne replied quickly, legally. You own 50% of the property, lest there's a signed agreement saying otherwise. They can't sell or refinance without your approval. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't need to argue or yell. I didn't need to show up at their door. I just needed to file the right paperwork. I told Marianne to prepare a formal notice or legal. Step 2, start a partition. That meant James and Heather would have two options: buy me out at fair market value, or be forced to sell the house completely. I didn't want their house. I wanted them to remember who helped them build their life, and who they tried to erase, like she never mattered. That night, I sipped tea in my condo and checked the family group chat. I was still locked out, no messages, no updates, no check-ins, not a single "are you okay?" So I messaged my accountant instead. Let's get an appraiser on their property by Friday. The next day, a real estate assessor showed up at their house quietly, legally, and without warning. 2 hours later, James called. His name popped up on my new phone. I hadn't given him my number, so I figured the lawyer had already informed them. I picked up. His voice was tight and defensive. Mom, why is someone trying to appraise our house? I didn't flinch. Because it's not just your house. My name is still on the deed. You forgot. He went quiet. I could hear Heather in the background, whispering something in a panic. Then James said, "But you gave us that house." "I co-signed for it," I said, calmly. "I never signed it over." "There's a difference." He tried to soften his tone. "Come on, don't do this. Let's talk face to face." "You already made your decision," I replied. "You told me to leave, so I left. Now, we're handling this like business." I hung up. My hands weren't shaking. I didn't feel guilt, just a calm, cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. They turned me from family into a tenant. Now I would return the favor politely, legally, and without any hesitation. As a co-owner of that house, I had a right to half its value, and I was going to take it. Let them feel the uncertainty they fed me. Let them sit with the discomfort of being pushed out. This wasn't revenge. This was a reset. 2 days after the appraisal notice went out, James showed up outside my condo building. He held a sad little bouquet of grocery store flowers like this was some last scene from a movie. He buzzed the intercom. I didn't answer. 30 minutes later, I was heading out for errands when he saw me at the entrance. He rushed toward me, his smile fake, his eyes wide like a kid who got caught stealing. "Mom, can we talk?" he said, standing in my way. "I think we all overreacted. Heather didn't mean to be so harsh. Things have just been stressful." I looked at him, my face calm. "Stressful? You handed your mother a rent bill and told her to leave. That wasn't stress. That was a choice." He stiffened, but he kept trying. "We were overwhelmed. You've always said you value your independence. We thought maybe you'd want your own space again." "You didn't offer space," I said. "You gave me an ultimatum." I stepped past him. He followed. "You're really going through with this? You're going to make us sell our house?" I stopped, turned, and looked him right in the eye. "No, I'm giving you the option to buy out my share. That's more than fair." His voice cracked. "We can't afford that. Not right now." "Then you'll have to make a decision," I said, and I walked away. That night, Heather called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was fake sweet, too careful. "Hi, Margaret. Just wanted to say we miss you. The kids ask about you all the time. Maybe you could come see them this weekend. They've been drawing pictures for you." I played it once, then deleted it. The next day, a delivery arrived at my door, a package. Inside was a handmade card from my youngest grandson. There was a photo of the kids holding a sign, "We love Grandma." Tucked underneath was a note from Heather. "Let's not let money come between us. You'll always have a place in our home." I stared at it for a moment, then fed it straight into the shredder. Because they didn't check on me when I left. Not one call, not one text to ask if I was safe. But now that my name was on legal paperwork, suddenly, I was Grandma again. I wasn't playing their game. That same week, I had a custom security gate installed in my condo's garage and gave the doorman a strict list. "Do not let these people in no matter what." James showed up again, this time with both kids. He was clearly hoping for a heartfelt sidewalk reunion, like some scene from a TV drama. He held the youngest in his arms like a human shield, mouthing my name through the glass doors. I didn't move, I didn't smile. I turned around and walked straight back to the elevator. If they wanted a mother, they should have treated me like one before. They treated me like a paycheck. The message had been sent. The line was drawn. I wasn't just retired anymore, I was unreachable. And then it started. A video popped up online, captioned, "When your husband's mother abandons you after using you for years." In just 2 hours, it had 50,000 views. I didn't even have TikTok on my phone. A former colleague from my nursing days sent it to me with one sentence: "They're making it public now." I clicked the link. There she was, Heather, crying softly, her face glowing under a beauty filter, sitting on the edge of their picture living room. "We opened our home to her during our hardest years," she said, her voice shaking just enough. "We gave her everything. And now she's trying to take our house away." She paused, wiped away a tear. "I'm not doing this for sympathy. I just want people to know the truth." It went on like that for 5 minutes, just the right mix of sadness and fake humility to make herself look like a saint. James appeared, halfway through, eyes down, nodding. "I never thought my own mom would do this," he said. "We're not greedy. We just wanted peace." I stared at the screen. No anger. Just clarity. Strategy. The comments rolled in fast. How could a mother do this to her own son? She must be mentally ill. "You're so strong for speaking up, Heather." And Heather ran with it. She posted 3 more videos that week, showing old pictures of me with the kids. Another walking around the house whispering, "She wants to take this from her grandchildren." And a third standing outside their front door, saying, "We might lose this soon. Please send prayers." Donations started trickling in through her linked Venmo. I sat in my condo watching it unfold and never once felt the need to respond. Not yet. Let them build their story. Let them cry for the internet. Because when I spoke, it wouldn't be with filters, tears, or half-truths. It would be with facts, documents, dates, contracts, and receipts. And when I dropped them, the silence would say more than their cries ever could. So I waited. And then one day, without warning, I made an account. I uploaded 1 video. No drama, no music, no filters. Just me, sitting at my dining table. Bright, natural light behind me. A neat stack of papers laid out in front. I spoke calmly. "My name is Margaret Bennett. I've stayed quiet while my son and his wife told the world I abandoned them. Now I'd like to share my side with facts, not feelings." Then I began. Grocery receipts from the last 3 years, many over $300 a week, all paid from my pension. Photos of me making school lunches, baking birthday cakes, shoveling the driveway in winter while they went on vacation. Screenshots of money transfers. $15,000 for their kitchen remodel, $3,000 when their car broke down. Childcare notes I kept out of habit, times the kids had fevers, doctor visits, milestones. Then I held up the property deed. "This is the house they live in," I said. "Look closely at the names. Mine is right there. I didn't ask for rent. I was evicted, and when I used my legal right to claim part of what I helped build, I became the villain in their story, and that was it. No name calling, no long speech. I posted the video with a simple caption, "Let's balance the story." Within an hour, the comments exploded. I believed them. Now I feel sick. She has every receipt. Literally justice for Margaret. The video passed 100,000 views. Then 1,000,000. People stitched it, shared it, analyzed it. Even a lawyer made a video breaking down the legal documents and confirmed everything I said was airtight. News outlets picked it up. First local, then national, and Heather. She posted another video, trying to spin it, but the damage was already done. The truth had spoken. And it didn't need to shout. I didn't lie, Heather insisted in her next video. "She's twisting everything. We just needed help." But the internet had already turned. The wave of sympathy that carried her before. It collapsed under the weight of receipts. People lined up screenshots of my posts next to hers to buy side. One user summed it up perfectly. "Heather gave us vibes. Margaret gave us documentation." Sponsors started pulling out. PTA boards removed her from directories. And James, who used to sit in the background looking smug now, looked like he wanted to disappear every time someone pointed a camera at him. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I posted one quiet follow-up video. "This isn't revenge. This is record keeping." Then I logged off, because I didn't need applause. I had already reclaimed something much more valuable: my credibility, my voice, and the peace that comes with being heard. Let them spin their story. I had already spoken, and now, the world was finally listening. The fallout didn't come with yelling or slammed doors. It came slowly through silence, hesitation, and then a quiet unraveling that no PR trick could fix. Within a week, Heather's sponsored posts vanished from her account. She replaced them with vague captions like taking a mental health break and stepping back from negativity. But the comments didn't stop. Where's the apology? What happened to the full story? Margaret deserves more than silence. The PTA emailed her an official removal notice, citing community trust concerns. Someone leaked the vote. It was unanimous. Then came the real hit. James got called into a meeting at work. Someone had forwarded them the video thread. He wasn't fired, but he was put under review. His LinkedIn account went private not long after. Meanwhile, I sat across from my lawyer Marianne, who slid a folder toward me. The petition's filed. They have 30 days to respond. If they can't buy you out, we proceed with a forced sale. I nodded, not out of anger, out of finality. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was business. I didn't care if they lost the house. What I cared about was this: they finally understood the cost of erasing someone's contributions. Heather tried one last Hail Mary, a tearful video with the kids in the background. We're being punished for something that was never about money, she said. But it didn't work. The tone had shifted. People asked hard questions now. Why didn't you share your proof? Why did you evict her before having a real conversation? Why was it okay to rely on her when it was convenient? The donations stopped. The sympathy engines stalled out. At the same time, Diane, my financial advisor, forwarded me 2 offers from buyers interested in the house. Word had gotten out that a forced sale might be coming. Real estate agents were circling. I forwarded the offers to Marianne and said, let's prepare the response packet. I didn't check their pages anymore. I didn't watch to see if Heather deleted TikTok or if James found a new job. I didn't care. What mattered was this: the fake image they built had cracked. Not because I shouted, but because I proved. They tried to rewrite the story with filters and hashtags. I rewrote it with facts. And when it came time to close the final chapter of that house, I wasn't walking in as a mother begging to be accepted. I was walking in as a Connery. What was always mine. No apologies needed. No forgiveness required. Just the clean end of a transaction dressed up for years as love. But I knew they weren't done yet. Desperate people cling to anything. What I didn't expect was for them to drag my sister into it. Not after 10 years of silence. Then a new video popped up. A woman with my nose, my voice, sitting in a cluttered kitchen, trying to sound like some expert on my life. I stared at the screen, not angry, just focused. It was Linda, my estranged younger sister, the same woman who stole $3,500 from our dying mother's hospice fund and vanished. Now, here she was, playing family historian. Margaret was never really maternal, she said, shaking her head. She always acted like she was better than us, just because she worked for rich people. It was so transparent, I almost laughed. The videos spread across Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube reaction channels, all eager to fan the flames. It got a few 100,000 views before I responded, but I didn't rant. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I posted a link to a PDF in a public drive with one line. The woman in that video once signed over medical power of attorney to me while I paid her rent during cancer treatment. She now denies ever needing help. Inside the PDF, hospital bills in my name, emails from her doctors, rent receipts, a notarized letter from her former landlord confirming I'd paid 7 months of her rent. By that afternoon, the Reddit thread flipped. Wait, she lied about being sick. Margaret paid her bills and now she's being painted as greedy. The narrative didn't just crack, it crumbled. Because here's the truth: no performance can survive. Receipts don't cry. They prove. It was honestly embarrassing. Someone even dug up a GoFundMe Linda had made a few years back, claiming she was homeless despite the fact I'd housed her. The truth unraveled faster than they could spin it. Heather and James had gambled on a weak story. They thought people wouldn't bother digging for facts. But I didn't come empty-handed, came with decades of proof. Because when you've spent your life being underestimated, you learn to document everything. James tried to backtrack. He posted, then quickly deleted the message saying they didn't know about Linda's complicated history, and that family dynamics are messy. But it was too late. Their credibility was in pieces, and all they really did was show the world how low they were willing to sink to avoid accountability. Meanwhile, I just kept moving forward, calm, clean, and legal. I met with buyers. I scheduled inspections. Every single move was traceable, quiet, and professional. I didn't need to trash them. I just let them talk themselves into a corner, and by now, the world had seen plenty. The town's annual spring open market was the last place I expected to be ambushed. But if anyone was going to make a scene, in public, it was Heather's mother, Elaine. I was minding my business, checking out some handmade soaps, when she came storming up, sunglasses perched on her head like she thought she owned the sidewalk, her mouth curled into that tight, righteous snarl. "How dare you show your face here?" she snapped, loud enough for the nearby vendors to turn and look. "You destroyed your own family, and now you're just walking around like nothing happened." She waved her arms, voice rising. "People like you shouldn't be allowed to raise children, let alone tear their lives apart." I stayed calm, as always. "I don't respond to public scenes," I said quietly, stepping aside. But she blocked my path. "You're a disgrace," she hissed. "You humiliated James and Heather online, and now you think you're some kind of hero." By then, a small crowd had formed. People whispered. Phones were being held just high enough to record. I opened my purse, slowly, and pulled out a small flash drive. I held it up so she and the crowd could see it. "Since you're so interested in what's humiliating," I said calmly, "you might want to hear what your daughter and son-in-law really think of me." Her eyes narrowed. "What is that? More lies?" I smiled. "Just a little. It's audio, a conversation they had recorded by accident. They didn't know I heard it, but they talked about me, about how long they could keep me around, paying their bills, before I figured it out." I let the silence settle. "You know what your daughter said," I added. "As long as she's breathing and paying bills, let her stay." Then I paused. James laughed and called me a walking wallet with Alzheimer's. Elaine's face went pale. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You're bluffing," she muttered. "You made that up." I didn't flinch. "It's been submitted to the court already," I said. "Time-stamped, verified, on record. The judge has it. Would you like me to email it to you too?" She didn't respond, just stared, then spun on her heel and stormed off, the crowd parting like a shame parade. I didn't say another word. I walked past them, head high, same way I'd walked out of James' house, with calm dignity. Later that evening, I got confirmation. The audio had been reviewed and officially filed in my partition case. It only strengthened my claim. The next day, Heather's online accounts went private. Her videos gone, her Venmo link scrubbed. James didn't post anything either. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. I never yelled. I never pointed fingers. All I did was show the truth, and that exposed them more than any argument ever could. It took less than a week after the audio leaked for the real bomb to drop. Heather filed for divorce. I heard it through a mutual acquaintance who works at the county clerk's office. The document was public record. Heather cited irreconcilable betrayal, financial negligence, and reputational harm. These weren't vague phrases. They were aimed directly at James, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. Heather had always been transactional. When the social media blowback cost her brand deals and PTA status, she did what she always does. She found a new scapegoat. James fit perfectly. Word is, she served him the papers on a Thursday morning. By noon, she'd packed up the kids and moved in with her mom. James was left standing alone in a house that was now under court-ordered review, for sale. He reached out twice, once by leaving a voicemail, and once through a mutual friend. Both times, his message was the same. "This got out of hand. Mom, I never wanted this to happen." But I didn't answer. I stayed quiet, because deep down, I knew the truth. He had let it all happen. He didn't stop it. In fact, he started it. He handed me a piece of paper and told me to either pay rent or leave my own home. That one heartless move set everything else in motion, and now it had all come crashing down. While he was trying to backtrack, I was moving forward. I signed the final paperwork with Marianne and sold my half of the house to a real estate investor who planned to fix it up and resell it. I didn't ask who would buy out James's half, or where he'd go. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. Once the money hit my account, I took half of it and put it into a scholarship I created for working grandmothers raising their grandkids. This wasn't for praise or attention. It was my way of closing the chapter. I had given James everything: my love, my support, my money, even my health. And when that still wasn't enough for him, he tried to turn my love into rent. But that love, it turned into freedom. And that freedom became unshakable. A week later, I sold the condo, packed only what I needed, and moved to a quiet coastal town 3 hours away. I got a new phone number, a new address, and didn't leave a forwarding contact. For the first time in decades, I didn't owe anyone anything, not my time, not my energy, not even my silence, and definitely not my forgiveness. I wasn't angry anymore, I was done. And that was stronger than any kind of revenge. It was peace. Months went by. Not a single call from James. No texts. No surprise emails slipping through the cracks. Just quiet. Until one morning, I was sipping coffee at a little cafe by the lake when an old neighbor spotted me. She rushed over wide-eyed and said, "You won't believe where James ended up." I didn't react, didn't ask, but she went ahead anyway, pulling out her phone and showing me a video. There he was, on a street corner in a nearby city, live streaming on someone else's phone. His eyes were empty, clothes wrinkled, his voice barely hanging on. He was telling his viewers how he'd been abandoned, cheated out of his inheritance, spinning another sad story. But this time, there was no Heather, no kids, no house, just James, sitting next to a dented thermos and a cardboard sign that said, "Help me start over." And as I watched him wave at passing cars, trying to get sympathy from strangers, I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not pity, not even satisfaction. Just ... stillness. Like the kind of quiet you feel when something truly ends. He had used everyone, turned every relationship into a tool. And now, all he had left was the truth, a version of himself he could no longer hide. I thanked my neighbor, paid for my coffee, and walked home under blooming wisteria trees. The air was warm, soft. My garden waited for me. My easel stood ready by the window. My inbox was quiet. No messages begging for help. No drama. I made another cup of coffee and sat down with a book I hadn't read since I was 23, back when I still thought family always meant safety. I've unlearned that now. I've learned that love must be mutual, that sacrifice should be seen, not expected, that being silent isn't weakness, it's a choice, and that letting go doesn't make you cold, it makes you free. People still ask sometimes, "Do you regret cutting him off?" I always give the same answer with a calm smile. No, I regret not doing it sooner. Because here's the truth, being kind without setting limits isn't kindness, it's erasing yourself. And I spent too many years disappearing for people who never noticed what I gave up for them. I don't wish James harm. I don't wish he suffers. I just hope he learns. But whether he does or doesn't, it's not my problem anymore. That burden is gone. That door is closed. And from where I sit now, with the sunlight dancing on the water and no one asking anything of me, I see it clearly. I didn't lose a son. I reclaimed my life. That's why I'm sharing this, because I made it through. I live in a place that's truly mine, filled with peace, not chaos. I smile when I wake up. I cook just for me. I sleep with a calm heart. I'm not waiting for anyone to come back. I'm happy. I'm free. And I wouldn't change a thing. That's it for now. What about you? What would you have done in her shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from you. And if this story hit close to home, check out the other videos. You won't want to miss them.